But who I think will win is going to be Canelo Alvarez. That's my pick for winning this fight. And the reason being is because of the fact that we don't know if Charlo can handle his power. Like we said earlier at the top of this show, with him moving up from 154 to 168, the power is just different. It's a different level of scale. Especially against somebody who's got about, almost 60 fights and nearly 40 KOs. Yeah, this brother's a heavy hitter. And again, this is a brother who knocked out Sergio Kovalev. This is a brother who has gone toe-to-toe with Gennady Golovkin and actively made Triple G react to his punches. And that's one of the biggest punchers that we've seen in the middleweight division, period. And one of the best chins that we've seen in the middleweight division in history, let alone just this era. And Canelo fought him 3 times and lived to tell the tale and won twice. So this is a real situation where his power weight is going to be able to win him today, as one of the bigger aspects as to why he will be able to win this fight. And again, when he actively does what we know Canelo's going to do, which is land body shots, which is attack the basement of Charlo, like Teddy Atlas always says, with him wanting to hit anything and everything to wear you down, even if he doesn't land on you cleanly, just to make it so that later on in the fight you won't be able to do anything because your body will be too beat up. This is a situation where we don't know if Charlo can withstand that level of power. But also it's because of the fact that he won't be able, in terms of Charlo, I don't think he'll be able to make Canelo respect his power. I don't think Charlo has enough, even with training with Derrick James, to have the ability to make Canelo respect him and be able to make him actively say, oh, wait a minute, oh, I can't just come forward and do whatever I want to do. Again, I could be wrong. We could see an absolute change, but until he actually shows it in the ring, I don't see it happening, because at this point in time, especially with the 2-year layoff, especially with him having potentially showing ring rust when he steps into that ring, all of that is too much for me to say, oh man, I think Charlo's going to be able to make Canelo back up, let alone just make him hesitate. I don't think this is going to happen. This is not no disrespect to Charlo. I know what can happen, and I outlined why he can win if everything goes right for Charlo. But I don't think that's what's going to happen on fight night. And because of that, I don't think we're going to see Canelo respect Charlo with the inability of Charlo up until this point to actively show he has power. Even though I say he's now got legitimate pop to him, which I still believe, he's going to have to show Canelo that that pop is the substantial and that pop is real in order for Canelo to give him the level of respect necessary for Charlo to implement his full game plan in order to win this fight. And I don't think that's going to happen. And on top of that, Canelo Alvarez, out and out, has more skill, is more adaptable, and is better well-rounded as a boxer than Charlo is. And Charlo's phenomenal, don't get me wrong. Again, he is, undisputed for a reason. He should be and is on, in my opinion, the pound-for-pound list for a reason. That title didn't just come just by happenstance. No, the brother's got legitimate talent, but that does not mean that he is better as a boxer than Canelo Alvarez. Canelo Alvarez has shown that he is smarter, he is more adaptable, he is better in generalship, he is able to outthink opponents on a more consistent basis. He doesn't always have to go to slugfest and has more dimensions to him as a boxer than we've seen Charlo show in his career, as well as Canelo has had more experience, and the experiences that he's had in that vast career spanning 15 years have been against people that are better than Jermell Charlo, in my estimation. Again, he fought Floyd, and then he fought, at that point in time, a prime dominant Triple G, who was the boogeyman of the entire division, let alone the entirety of boxing. He has gone into war with people with a wealth of knowledge, with a wealth of tactics, and with a wealth of different looks and scenarios that Charlo hasn't experienced yet, but Canelo has. And because of that, we can see that experience and the experience that he's gained from the past fighters and past champions in terms of Canelo's career that he's faced. We can see that come to fruition, and we can see that be something that Charlo may not be able to overcome, because he may not understand how to operate in certain situations, unlike Canelo, who has been in those situations and has come out on top. And all of that is why I think Canelo's going to be able to win this fight. But the biggest gripe, despite everything that I said with Canelo winning, there is one X factor that is far and away going to be the deciding factor for this fight. Well, actually two. One, stamina. The deciding factor potentially for this fight. Stamina. Jermell Charlo is known as the Iron Man. The brother's got stamina for days. He's a workhorse. He can go 12 rounds, same output without any issue whatsoever. Even at this elevated weight class, I don't think it's going to be a problem for him when he steps into the ring. But with Canelo, it's a different story. We've seen Canelo get older. Even with him having a diminished level of boxing ability, it's still phenomenal. Don't get it twisted. And even now, I still think it's better. The one gripe against him has always been his gas tank. We saw it go down against Triple G in that trilogy fight, and we saw it against John Ryder when they fought against each other, and how the output wasn't able to be sustained as the fight went on. This is the real test for Canelo, because he's going up against somebody who can, from round 1 to round 12, go as hard as he wants to and have no issue surviving. We could see a situation where we could see Jermell Charlo be able to overwhelm Canelo and get him tired, so that in the later rounds, that same or even elevated volume that he chooses to put on Canelo actively starts chipping away and leading into a situation where, oh man, he's got control. And potentially, if he loses the early rounds, he wins the late rounds because of Canelo's gas tank that has gotten worse and worse and worse, seemingly, as his career has gone on. That's just a fact. We've said this about Canelo countless times on this very channel and on just a boxing pundits. We've seen it. Canelo's gas tank has been a real concern. We've seen him slow down. We've seen him slow his output and just his overall boxing movement speed. We've seen it get lower and lower as the rounds get later and later. It's one of the biggest reasons why against Triple G in their third fight, it was Triple G coming back, because Triple G all of a sudden amped up the pressure, put it on Canelo later in the fight, even though he lost the majority of the rounds, looking for a KO, because he was trying to gas out Canelo and make it so that when he actively amplified his pressure, put his all into his punches and upped his volume, he would be able to get Canelo out of there, because Canelo would then be tired, as well as taking these bludgeoning shots. Oh, it's enough to put him on the canvas and potentially get the fight stopped or get a KO. That's what Triple G was going for. And while he didn't get the KO and he lost the fight, Canelo didn't have the gas tank. He wasn't able to keep up with the pace when Triple G elevated himself, even though he was so dominant in terms of Canelo early on in that fight, for the majority of that fight. Triple G won those later rounds, absolutely. John Ryder was having success in the later rounds against Canelo when they fought, even though John Ryder got dominated for the majority of the fight. John Ryder bloodied Canelo. John Ryder put on a respectable performance when it was supposed to be just a whitewashing from Canelo in his hometown, in his home stadium, amongst his own people, in a fight that was supposed to be giving back to his fans in Mexico. It was still an entertaining affair, no doubt about it. And he knocked him down multiple times, absolutely. But still, when the later rounds came, what happened? We saw Canelo Alvarez then get lax. We saw shots get through. We saw that block get chinks in the armor. We saw vulnerability. We also saw it against Bivol, when the stamina wasn't able to be consistently what it needed to be. And I gave it to because of the fact that he was fighting above his weight class at 175. Again, I know he fought Kovalev at light heavyweight and won, absolutely, but that was earlier in his career. His body was able to take that a little better. Now, nah, it wasn't. That's what I thought was the case when he fought up against Bivol when he went up to 175. But when he went back down, still those stamina issues were persistent. And now those stamina issues are going up against an Iron Man, literally, nicknamed the Iron Man, in Jermell Charlo, who can go as hard as he wants to, punch in volume all 12 rounds, and not have any waning abilities. Unless the weight affects him in terms of Charlo, unless the weight affects him and his stamina, which right now he's been looking phenomenal in training and just his overall body. He looks like, oh, this is great for him. But unless we see the weight affect Charlo's stamina and make it so that he doesn't have the gas tank that we've seen Charlo have for all of his career, unless that happens, It could be a situation we see Charlo gas out Canelo in the later rounds and use that volume coupled with the newfound power and his timing to be able to get Canelo out of there. Canelo can gas out. Canelo can wane. Canelo can succumb to stamina loss. Canelo can succumb to fatigue. And that's the prime time for Jermell Charlo to get in the work and the shots necessary, not just to win rounds in the later part of the fight, but to potentially put Canelo in real trouble and knock him out. I'm not saying it's likely. Again, I still don't think it's going to happen. But of everything that we talked about before, that's the realest situation that we could see Charlo get into in order for him to take victory. But all of that could be alleviated if Canelo does two things. One, stamina, get that stamina up. And two, head movement. Like he did against Danny Jacobs, like he's done against Lara and other boxers in his career. Canelo at his best was able to utilize head movement. Not this walk down, guard up style. The ability to move his head, slip punches, and consistently get off angle and get off the center line of his opponent to slip and counter was what made him one of the most devastating boxers of this generation. Is what got him the moniker of being the pound for pound #1 in the world at one point in time in his career. It's what got him to become the face of the sport. Head movement. If he is actively able to move his head, phenomenal. But when he doesn't, he's beatable. Especially against somebody like a Charlo, who, unlike John Ryder, is actively refined and can throw in volume like John Ryder was trying to do, but have success. That is what Canelo is facing up against. And because of that, he can't fight the same way anymore. I've gotten on him for it multiple times. Canelo needs to utilize head movement. And if he doesn't, there is a substantial likelihood that we could see an upset. If everything that I said previously bodes true in terms of Canelo, in terms of Charlo's game plan against Canelo. If all of that bodes true and Canelo doesn't move his head, we could see a legitimate situation where Charlo is the new undisputed super middleweight championship and becomes the second two-time undisputed champion in two separate weight classes, joining Terrence Crawford and just outright, all in all, joining Clarissa Shields. That could be a real reality if Canelo does not move his head. But if he does move his head, like we've been seeing in training videos, like we've been seeing with him in the gym, like we've been seeing from him when he's been training with Eddie Reynoso, who, again, I've been saying, or if I hadn't said it before, I'll say it now, the training style of Eddie Reynoso's for Canelo Alvarez hasn't been good because he has seemingly taken away Canelo's best attribute, which is being able to be slick and hard to hit and being an aggressive counterpuncher by slipping punches. You did not even have to land on the body of his opponent to get them tired, make them miss while you're standing in front of him. That was one of Canelo's best traits, and all of a sudden got ripped away. And I speculate it's because Eddie Reynoso's training and change in training style. But now, if what we see in these training videos are true, and we see Canelo utilizing head movement more, utilizing slipping in his defensive abilities, and which will inevitably lead into him utilizing that for offensive gains by countering, Charlo has no shot. Those are the two X factors. The main one being stamina, and the second one being if Canelo actively utilizes head movement in this fight. But again, I have Canelo Alvarez winning. And for my prediction, I got Canelo Alvarez winning by KO if it's not early in the third, because if he catches him right and Charlo can't take it, boom, it's down and out. Or late in the 10th round after wearing and tearing on Charlo all fight long. Or by split decision, again, because I think it's going to be a close fight. If it's not by KO in the 3rd and or 10th round, by split decision by the end of the fight. That's where I got winning. But again, that can very well not happen. And we could see Charlo get the upset and win And it's predicated out of everything else I've said on 2 X factors. One being stamina, the most paramount one. And then, if Canelo does not move his head, if Canelo is still walking forward and having that guard up, come forward mentality, even though I said that's what I think he's going to do in this fight, if he does indeed do that, as much as that can actively win him the fight, it can also absolutely lose him the fight.